Hey everyone, I think we're just waiting for Finney to jump on. So we're trying to see where he's at.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm gonna be that guy and break the radio silence. So we are waiting to hear from Finney. I've reached out to him, and I believe Nancy has as well, but we haven't heard any word. I'm wondering if I can make a motion to get this meeting started and come to order. Rick, is that possible?
Yes, it is. You could
Okay.
just call the meeting to order on behalf of Finney. You don't have to have a vote to call the meeting to order.
Okay, I'm gonna call the meeting to order at 3:13 p.m. on behalf of Finney. So good afternoon, everybody. Let's see. Rip, could you pop the agenda up on the screen for us, please? Okay, fantastic. I believe I can ask for unanimous consent for approval of the agenda and the October 26th meeting minutes. I don't feel comfortable speaking on Finney's behalf, of course, but it looks like the place to start would be with Lisa Lindquist for a posthumous degree for Jerry Surveyor. Lisa, are you with us?
Yes, hello. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. I had lost my voice yesterday, so. All righty. Well, thank you all so much, Senators, for the opportunity to speak on behalf of the family of Jerry Surveyor. Jerry received unanimous support for them from the folks at Public Administration to approve his posthumous degree. Jerry was a veteran and also a member of our Native communities. This request was made on behalf of his family by his daughter. They're very interested in honoring all of his achievements in a memorial sometime next year. I thought it was also important to note that he received his bachelor's from the University of New Mexico back in 2010, so definitely a loyal Lobo. We're sad for his passing, but hopefully we can support him and his family in a posthumous degree. Any questions? I do have some information in a letter of support from the department, basically stating that he has completed 39 of the 42 hours towards his master in public administration. His GPA was a 3.61 cumulative. And he was planning on working on his capstone prior. He had registered for that right before his passing. Any questions?
Thank you. Thank you, Lisa. Oh, and it looks like Finney is with us.
No, Cash, go ahead, please.
Okay, I will keep rolling then. So if we don't have any questions, Rick, is this something you can pop up for us as a survey, please? So colleagues, posthumous degree. And Rick, please, if you can let us know when you have a count.
Okay, excuse me. It passes with just one against.
Okay, passes almost unanimously with one against. Colleagues, thank you, and Lisa, thank you so much for that presentation. I hope your voice gets better soon. I wish you a speedy recovery.
Thank you. Thanks, y'all, and I hope you all have a good, relaxing break. Take care.
Fantastic. Okay, so with that, I believe Provost Holloway is with us. Good afternoon.
Thanks, Cash, and thanks everyone for taking the time today. And thanks for being here on Tuesday afternoon before Thanksgiving. Rick, can I share a screen?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. I cannot start screen share while the other participant is sharing. Rick, can you stop sharing screen?
Sorry about that.
No worries. We've all been there.
Zoom.
Okay, so thanks everyone again for spending some time. I did put together a little bit of a presentation today, but I'm going to try and be quick, particularly owing to the time of year. So let me move through this. First thing I want to do is recognize one of our own, and that's really to offer congratulations to Heather Sweetser, who has been named the National Language Teacher of the Year by the American Council on the Teaching of Foreign Languages. So round of applause for Heather. Yay. I think it's just terrific, and it's wonderful to have the teaching of languages recognized in this way. So thank you, Heather, for everything that you do. Next, I want to say just a little bit about academic leadership transitions. Effective next summer, Camille Carey will become the next Dean of Law, following Sergio Pareja, whose term will end next June. And so Camille is currently the Dean Designate for the UNM School of Law. We have a national search. We had a really fantastic slate of candidates interested in the position who interviewed with us. Many of you spoke with some of them. And I think the support for Camille was just overwhelming. We're really excited to have her joining. Well, she's not joining us, but she's been here for quite some time, but really excited to have her moving into this next role in a few months. I think, and just very briefly mentioning, I may have mentioned this before, but the Vice President for Student Affairs search has begun, and Barbara Rodriguez is leading that. I should mention as well that the Office of Student Affairs is doing a reimagining exercise. And so they're meeting with, they've already had some focus groups with faculty. They have a focus group with students planned. They're talking internally with the student affairs staff so that when the new vice president comes in, there's some initial thinking about what student affairs might be, how it might do more for our students. And so excited to see that search going on. And we've also now formally launched the search for the chancellor for UNM Valencia, and Cindy Rooney will be chairing that search. I wanted to mention, and I've given this presentation or versions of this presentation, so I forgive me if I've said some of this to this group before, but I wanted to mention the work that Vice President for Research Ellen Fisher, Advance at UNM, led by Julia Fulgham, key members of the Provost Office team with Barbara Rodriguez and Bill Stanley have been doing in faculty support, and in particular, starting last summer, started to provide support to faculty, particularly focused on junior faculty, faculty whose family situations were particularly affected by COVID. We're really running a set of programs to try and help faculty get their research rebooted after the very complex year of 2020 into spring of 2021. And so they provided faculty with summer support last summer. Next spring 22, they're offering faculty support to either buy out a course replacement or have a graduate assistant. And they've also started a program to purchase shared use equipment for those who work in laboratory settings. And the support has been pretty evenly distributed across the institutions. You can see by the, I'm going to call it the model list diagram on the right hand side. And so we'll continue to see this kind of support. One of the things we know is that the impacts of COVID on faculty scholarship and research will take years to really be managed. So for example, in promotion and tenure cases, we are going to be reminding external letter writers, internal committees, department chairs, literally for years. Remember, those were the years of COVID, so that we can appropriately consider the what was going on during this time in a faculty member's life when many of our faculty put more time into supporting our students and had to do a little bit less in their scholarship. Just a few things in academics. One really important thing is that coming up next October, the Higher Learning Commission will visit UNM for our regular full accreditation visit. And so this is the whole visit that happens every few years to accredit the entire institution. You may remember I talked previously about a recent focused visit they did. The focused visit was focused on governance and financial management and athletics. That was very successful. It removed us from any special monitoring, but we still have to go through this full visit in 2022. And so Pamela Cheek is on point in leading that and is firing up the engines of accreditation and report writing and assessment that are important to that. For those who don't know, the Lobo Food Pantry is open in a new location in the sub with more space, a better location, better equipped facility. And over the last 2 weeks, we actually ran a fundraising campaign for them, and the goal was $15,000, and they've exceeded that goal. So we're really excited about that too. One last item I'll mention in kind of student support. Dean of Students and SHAC got together and worked on a positive chalking event in October around mental health issues. And kudos to the Lobo Prevention Pack and PAWS, two different student groups who really put this together. And those who haven't seen a positive chalking event, the idea really is to fill the campus with positive messages in support of students. So kudos to our students for putting that together. Okay, starting to look forward a little bit and thinking about resources. One of the things that we're in the middle of is a faculty salary study. And so we're looking at faculty salaries at UNM compared to appropriate comparators across the country, other research universities. And what we know at this point is that to bring UNM main campus faculty salaries to the median of an appropriate comparator group, we'll need about 14 million, that's salaries and benefits. That's about 11 million in salaries and the rest in benefits. Health Sciences Center has a similar need. They need about 16 million to get to where they need to be competitive. So all total, UNM needs to find and develop about 30 million in resources to get our faculty salaries where they need to be. And the reason for doing these studies, the study was to have a clear sense of what we need in order to get where we need to be, so that we can really start working on that. There is a positive and productive conversations going on with the state on this topic. The Legislative Finance Committee staff has been very supportive and made a lot of supportive statements around this. They understand this, the need to get faculty salaries up to something of a national norm in order to be competitive, to recruit faculty, to retain faculty. The research universities have presented as a team to the Legislative Finance Committee to describe the need for this and the importance of it. And it's one of our legislative priorities. So we're hoping that we can make some progress on this with the legislature this year. And again, the need is large, and the state will be an important source of funds to make this happen. And it won't happen all at once. It won't happen in a year, but we need to keep working on it over multiple years. A couple other areas I want to mention that we know we need support in then also are faculty startup. We're not always competitive in recruiting faculty because we can't offer the right startup packages. Teresa Constantinides and I and Ellen Fisher have been talking about ways to manage that through what some of us now know we would call balance sheet strategies, but through the way we manage funds. We're also once again pursuing opportunities with the state that might also help support this. And frankly, the other need we have in terms of faculty recruiting, retention, and work environment is in facilities. Teresa's got fairly solid data now to demonstrate kind of what our financial gap is in terms of what we ought to be spending on facilities compared to what we are spending on facilities. So all of these are areas of attention, active attention. Excuse me. Finney wanted me to say just a little bit about enrollment. Overall, when we look at enrollment right now for the whole system, we're down about 0.5%. The branches are still suffering from the impacts of COVID. Two-year colleges felt COVID in a very hard way on enrollment, but they have seen increases from last fall, so that's a positive. When we look at Albuquerque, Albuquerque's down about 2%, 2.5% from last year. We've seen growth in graduate students, that's a good thing, but decreases in undergraduate students. Overall, if we look kind of big picture in Albuquerque, student credit hours are down by about 20% over the last 5 years across the Albuquerque campus. They're down about 22% in the main campus units, but that varies quite a bit unit to unit. Arts and sciences is down about 28% in student credit hours over the last 5 years. By contrast, Anderson School of Management is down a few percent. I think it's 7 or 8%. So there's a lot of variation from school to school in where we see the credit hour shifts. But that is a challenge because credit hours, in terms of tuition revenues, credit hours are a bit of a proxy for that source of revenue that's important for our operations. On the other hand, there are positive things to say. New students in Albuquerque are up. The bar across the bottom in yellow shows undergraduate first time, first year, fall and summer starts. That's gone up for the first time in quite a few years, with 30,081 students starting in summer and fall of this year. We're seeing increases in graduate students. We saw increased transfers in the fall, increased graduate and professional degrees, increased out-of-state transfers, increased first-time undergraduates. The only place we didn't see a significant change was readmits. So readmitted students coming into that is students who had stepped out of UNM for a little while. We did see some decreases there. But overall, these are good signs. We've managed to increase our new undergraduate and graduate enrollment twice in 2 times, right? We did it last year, we did it this year. It shows we can bring students into UNM and bring new students in. That's important. Let me do this in kind of a different, well, sorry, I'm going to come back. On the other hand, I want to say that retention and recruitment then become really important. So if I look at first term to third term retention, from last fall to this fall, it was 68%. That's down from 77% in the previous year. So we did not retain our students well over the last year. You break that down a little bit, the main and unusual loss of students was from fall 2020 to spring 2021. Listening to our students about that, the thing that drove them out were everything around the stresses of COVID. The stresses of COVID, the online learning environment that they found disengaging. And so, you know, as we think about how we're engaging our students, how we're connecting with them, it's not new information. It's well established in the literature on students, student engagement, students feeling like they're part of the institution, like they're connected to faculty. That's what keeps them here. And that's what was hard last year. And that's what we have to worry about going forward is so, you know, we're bringing in larger classes, groups of new students. Can we retain them? Is becoming the key question. Looking just a little bit forward in recruiting, admissions for fall are currently up, 9% in state, 43% out of state. So are admissions for spring. We're admitting students right now for spring 2022. Those are up as well, both in state and out of state. So those are positive trends. Transfer admits, on the other hand, are down, not by a huge number, about 20 students down for the spring compared to last year. That's somewhat concerning and also somewhat not surprising. The 2-year college, colleges suffered huge enrollment decreases over the last year. So we're recruiting transfer students from a smaller pool. More concerning perhaps is that graduate admits for spring term are down. Now, that's not the main time when we admit graduate students, but it is something for us to be worried about and paying attention to. And it's much too early to talk about graduate admits for fall, but we're very early in the admission cycle for graduate students for fall. But again, you know, my biggest worry right now is students who are here right now this fall remaining here in the spring. If they don't, then that's a big impact. Again, we lost a lot of students at this period of time last year. And the same with transfer students, getting students who are in 2-year colleges and ready to come here to actually come here in the spring. Okay, and then I'm just going to talk a little bit about budgets. And so this chart, this shows what we call the core funds. In olden times, folks might have called this ING, but we decided that term is confusing. So we're trying to switch to new terminology. But this is the funding from the state, tuition revenues, mandatory student fees, and a few other things. And so basically that's what this is. The main thing that's important to us right now is that our estimated, when we go into each fiscal year, we estimate the amount of tuition revenue we're going to get. It's a moving target. We know how much tuition revenue we got for this fall. We don't know how much tuition revenue we will get for spring or summer, but we estimate those based on previous year's trends. And we currently estimate that we'll be down about 5.5 million in tuition compared to what we projected. That doesn't lead to a net shortfall of 5.5 million because we actually build in what we call a hedge on tuition revenue. So we don't allocate all of the tuition we imagine we're going to get. And so our net shortfall of revenues compared to allocations is about 3 million. That won't lead to any kind of mid-year issues. Teresa and I hate mid-year budget rescissions. It's just a bad thing to do. It doesn't allow planning. It leads to, it makes it impossible for schools and colleges to run their operations. But that we just know then that 3 million shortfall we will wind up building into next year's budget. I wanted to say just a little bit about kind of where funds come from and where they go. And so overall, UNM is a $4 billion operation. The largest single source of revenues is our patient fees, so pay for patient services. About 10% of that 4 billion, about 383 million, represents the piece of the budget that we think about as core funds, funds that support the president's office, finance and administration, the academic units on the campus. Of those funds, about 87% come from state appropriations, tuition and fees. Another chunk comes from F&A recovery, and about 8% or so comes from the various state funds. But the main takeaway is we are mostly a state appropriation and tuition and fee driven institution on this kind of in the academic side here. Those funds, this is that same 380 some million, about 77% of it is used for recurring allocations that support academics as well as administration. Some of it goes back out as the other pieces or things that go out as mandatory student fees that pays the mortgage. Pays the mortgage on the sub and the Anderson and the McKinnon building and Johnson Gym and things like that. F&A goes right back out. So F&A comes into the core fund. It goes right back out to be allocated through the Vice President for Research. Some funds that go out to support equipment and facilities and so on. But about 77% of it is there for what we think of usually in the salaries, supplies, and so on that flow into the academic units. Of those funds, about 209 million of those core funds come into academic affairs. About 47 million go to finance and administration, supporting buildings and that kind of thing. About 12 million go into the president's organization. And I just wanted to say a little bit about academic affairs and where that goes. So the academic affairs core funds go to the schools and colleges, about 76 million to arts and sciences. There's 20 million here called academic affairs units. I'll tell you what those are in a second. 20 million to engineering, 16 million Education and Human Sciences, 15 million to the library, 14.6 to CFA, and so on. You can read down the list if it's of interest. The academic affairs units are things like graduate studies, global education, so the International Programs Office, the Water Resources Master's Degree Program, the Center for Teaching and Learning, CARS, kind of things like that, the University Secretary's Office. Also in that, there's also in that chunk of funds are actually the funds for faculty promotions and funds for faculty retention. So those actually flow through that bucket as well. And so I just wanted to share this with you to give folks a sense of kind of where these core funds go. It's worth noting then, these are not the budgets of schools and colleges. This is only the core funds. Schools and colleges budgets are made up of these core funds, research funds, other kinds of designated funds like philanthropic funds and so on. But in terms of sort of where does the tuition and fee money go, this is where it goes. Most of our units are operating in a solid position right now. College of Arts and Sciences has a structural budget shortfall that we're working to resolve, and hope to be able to rectify that in the next 3 years or so. Okay, and so I think I will stop there and stand for questions. Stop share. And the fewer questions you ask, the sooner we can all get out of here. But thanks, Dan.
There's a question from Carla about have we reached out? Carla, do you want to ask that question?
Sure, thank you. Dr. Holloway, I was just wondering what kind of things we've done to reach out to the students that have kind of fallen through the cracks or kind of disappeared on us.
Yeah, it's a great question. And Dan Garcia's team have been very active in that, starting even last spring. So when they didn't return last spring, we were already reaching out saying, hey, you want to come in the summer? You want to come in the fall? And so they're very active on that, reaching out to them and trying to address as well when they reach out, are there particular issues that we can help them solve, or their financial issues. One of our distributions of federal stimulus funds this summer, we made sure to reach out to all of those students who hadn't re-enrolled to let them know that if, you know, we're going to distribute those funds to our enrolled students in the fall, so that they knew that if they re-enrolled, they could get some of those stimulus funds as well. And so they've been very active at that, and they're not done. So, you know, I think I've told this group before, about 1,000 students disappeared, if you will, between last fall and last spring. Didn't go anywhere. They're not in higher ed. We can, you know, look across the country and see they're not in higher ed. We still reach out to those students. So we're not giving up on any of the students. You know, I think for me, the great tragedy is, you know, we lost some students from higher ed for whom the kind of learning environment we could provide them through Zoom and online didn't work. And the tragedy is that if we can't get them back, the impact on their lives will last for 40, 50 years. So to me, it's really important that we try and get them back in the higher ed somewhere, because the impact on their future lives is so great. So thanks again, Carla, for the question.
Ian, I see your hand up, and I see Tracy's too. Tracy had a question in the chat. Is that the one you're coming to, Tracy? Okay. Ian, do you mind if she goes first?
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Mine's Faspian. It's for Provost Holloway. Can you just let us know how the pantry is funded? Our campus is kind of interested in maybe doing that in Gallup, and we don't know how that operates.
Yeah, so thanks, Tracy, for the question. There's two sources of funds, and let me say three sources of resources. So there's we have an allocation of funds to them to support staff. And so that's funded partially by ING funds and actually partially by federal stimulus monies. There's philanthropic donations to the pantry that have been very, very important. And then in some sense, one of the most important sources of support is actually that they work in partnership with the Roadrunner Food Pantry here in Albuquerque. So that they're not competing with the Roadrunner for food donations and so on. And so a lot of their, the food that they're distributing is actually coming to them through Roadrunner. And that partnership with kind of the major food pantry in the city has been really important. So again, it's a combination of partnering with the local food pantry, an allocation to support staff, as well as equipment and that kind of thing, and then philanthropy.
Thank you.
I'm going to just jump in if you don't mind. Provost Holloway, thank you so much for your report. One thing that's been on my mind, particularly as we get towards the end of the semester, is I don't know where my faculty colleagues see this, but I've noticed an increased number of students that are showing or just not showing up for class because of mental health issues. And as you mentioned with the positive chalking as well as retention issues, I'm wondering, is there anything going on in terms of tracking mental health issues with students so that we can sort of be aware of whether that issue is really impacting us and how do we resolve that?
Yeah, so thanks for the question, Ian. Let me say first that let me follow up by checking in with Shaq to see what they're seeing. We do, especially at this time of year and any year, see an increase in students who are suffering various kinds of forms of stress and anxiety. And I don't think there's any question that it's been exacerbated last year and this year by the pandemic. We've increased the number of counselors at Shaq. We've also provided funding and support through the Women's Resource Center, who use interns from psychology to support students in need. And that actually is a pretty good program because it scales somewhat better than hiring professional counselors. But it's absolutely true that the need is outstripping the availability of services. So, you know, the students who reach out to us, I think we have a pretty good handle on. The ones I worry about are the students who are suffering in silence. And that is one place where I would say, you know, all of our faculty colleagues can help some simply by pointing students towards the available resources. And let me put it in the chat here. Get the web link. So we have a website called mentalhealth.unm.edu. And what that site does is it gives students at least one place where they can go and see what the resources are. Because that's kind of the biggest challenge. And by the way, that's not just for students, faculty, staff. So that they can find out where they can get help. Because again, the students I worry about are the ones who, you know, haven't reached out for help.
Sure.
But you know, Ian, thanks for the flag on that, because we could get a report from Shaq and the counseling folks there, kind of on what they see as the status more broadly. So I'll try and do that.
Sure. Thanks so much. I would really appreciate that.
The website's available to everybody. Some of the resources on it, the question was about, is it available to the branches? Some of the resources on it are certainly available to the branch campuses. The branch campus folks can't drop into Shack, but for example, the Agora Crisis Center will support folks remotely, as will some of the other services listed there. I thought I saw another hand, or maybe it was a question. Rebecca Blankley was asking about students we lost due to vaccination status. I don't have a complete update, but the number is something just less than 200. And so we had a number of students who we disenrolled, and within a week of disenrolling produced vaccination cards. Not all of them by any means. And then we really just did disenrollments in two waves. We disenrolled a group of students who were on campus physically present, and that was something on the order of 90, and about 20-ish, very round numbers, then produced vaccination cards. And then we disenrolled. We gave a group of students another week who were, according to their records, taking all of their classes online. Those students still have to request an exemption because they have to certify to us that they won't come to campus. There's about 100 of those who disenrolled in the second round, and some of them have subsequently come back with vaccination information. So in the end, we wound up really with disenrollments of something less than 200. And again, I can get a precise count of that. It has been a moving target because we have been disenrolling and then re-enrolling students and we've been pretty lenient, frankly. If we've disenrolled a student and they've produced a vaccination card from last March, which is crazy, but that's what we've seen. We've disenrolled a student and they come back the next day with their first shot, and we're like, okay, we'll re-enroll you, put a hold on your account, and if you get your second shot at the appropriate time, then you can register for the spring. So we've again, our goal has been vaccinations, not disenrollments. Hope that helps.
That's very helpful. And I really appreciate providing the different avenues for which they can meet the goal.
Thank you. Okay, anything else?
And colleagues, Finney has asked me privately to pick back up running the meeting. So thank you so much, Provost Holloway. It looks like we don't have any other questions.
Thanks, Josh. I really appreciate it. And I realize I'm standing between all of you and Turkey. So
thank you.
Take care. So Rick, if you could pop up our agenda again, please. I believe next is the Faculty Senate President's report, if I'm not mistaken.
Thanks, Josh. I have just a very brief, I'll run through my notes very quickly. I do want us to, I'm going to put in the chat, if I can get it to cut and paste for me, a request from Sheila Jernak, our registrar. If I can get it in the chat. Let's see. She's looking for folk who can help with a banner upgrade. I'll give folk a chance to see that. If you're interested in helping, or you have folk that you would like to recommend for that, send them to me or reach out to her directly. She's also asked about do any of us know of directives regarding student attendance? Whether there's a policy someplace that says faculty members must conduct student attendance, call the roll in their class, or something like that. I know they're working in the new system to put in the capacity to do an enrollment platform. And I think they were looking to see if there's I don't know of any. I've, even in the same semester, I'll have different attendance requirements, say for my graduate students than I do for my undergraduates. Or if I have an upper level lit course and I've got freshmen in a class, I'm usually a little bit more strict on one versus the other. So I think that goes by faculty member to faculty member. Is that other folks' understanding? Yeah, I don't know of any place where we have a directive to that. I don't know if I'd like to see a directive either in that regard. So CO7, I'll present that at S Star next week, as well as, well, actually, I won't be reporting out on an honorary degree committee. We did not have a candidate this year for an honorary degree. We had few, didn't have a full slate of candidates. That's the fairest way to put it. And so we did have one candidate that we thought might be interesting, but asked that person to hold off until next year's cycle, and hopefully we'll have more candidates to compare to. And for all of us, any of us can make that nomination for an honorary degree across your disciplines, across your colleges. If there have been people who've been influential in your field that you would like to see receive an honorary degree, and they have a connection to the state, a connection to UNM, or just outstanding in their discipline, we will entertain nominations for that. Jay Wright, who is a poet from Albuquerque, I was really happy to see him some years back get one of the honorary degrees. It was actually a great process pushing him forward for that. So I encourage us to spread the word about the honorary degree process and participate in it if you'd like. We're going to need to discuss C70 probably first thing in the spring semester to talk about that. What does it mean to have a file, right? And I don't know how those conversations are going to go, but they could be. Hopefully, we'll take some time to think through it and read C70 before we actually go there. There is some movement on looking to rescind policy C100 altogether. That's making its way through the policy committee right now. Just a reminder to our colleagues about the annual learning or the Learning Central training, our annual training. I'm guilty as charged. I'm not done with mine yet. But just, if we could share with our colleagues to go ahead and finish those things up. The diversity requirement conversation. This is something actually I probably just need to circle back with our curriculum committee chair. But the idea is that the diversity requirement, the leaders of that committee might have a dotted line or a solid line to the curriculum committee, but we can't have that important curriculum decision being made in the office of a vice president. That committee needs to be, connected in some way to the curriculum committee. That does not mean that the faculty senate has to identify people who have the expertise to do that work. I think that it means that when that work is done, we have a clear relationship with it, and we have faculty members who can report back to the curriculum committee about the progress, any concerns about that process. So I don't think we need to remove it from where it is as much as we need to align the people who are in it with the faculty senate. I think that's in keeping with what we've talked about in the past on that issue. My last point is about the leadership retreat. And we will meet again in the spring. We spent a lot of time talking about the workload for branch campuses and about the different roles that we all or the shared governance that we all are so committed to protecting here at UNM and working together so that there's as little daylight as possible between AF&T, COG, Faculty Senate, and UA-UNM. One last thing, the Dean of the School of Medicine search, we should have some candidates coming forward here soon. In fact, I was late coming to this. I was doing a write-up on that search and lost track of time. I apologize for my tardiness. Very interesting search. Hopefully we'll see some participation in the on-campus interviews. Cash, that's all I have. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Finney. So we are moving on now to the consent agenda. So fall 2021 degree candidates. Do we have a list that we can pop up or a link?
Sorry, Rick, he's there.
There we go. Thank you. Thank you. And so if I'm correct, this is something we vote on. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. Can we go ahead and pop that up, please? And then Rick, if you will please let us know when you have a count.
Okay, it was approved with 3 abstentions.
Okay, fantastic. So the fall 2021 degree candidates are approved. Let's see. Thank you. And so next we have the Faculty Senate Committee appointments. Is this something we can pop up on the screen?
Yes, 1 second, please.
Okay, fantastic. So we have Stephanie on RAC and Deborah on library. So I believe this is something we also need to vote on. Is there any discussion before we do vote? Okay, Rick, if you could please pop the poll up for us. Thank you. If you can let me know when we have a count, please.
Okay, it looks like it was unanimous.
Okay, so we have unanimously approved the Faculty Senate Committee appointments. So moving on, do we have any public comment?
No, no one signed up for public comment.
Okay, fantastic. So with that said, it looks like our agenda is exhausted and we are ready to adjourn. Happy holidays, everyone. Thank you.
Good job, Cash.
Thanks.
Thank you, Cash.
Thank you, Cash. I appreciate that.
Good thing, Finney.
Yeah.
Mhm. I messaged him like, can you start the meeting? So anyway,
Sorry about that.
we're good.
It's just a very passionate session today.
Rick, can you end the recording, please? Okay, can't.